Imagine your local high school is trying to buy a few virtual reality headsets for their science lab.
Oh, yeah. Like the ones they use for those interactive biology lessons.
Exactly. But then they log on to buy them and they find the price just spiked overnight, like significantly.
Right.
Why would a piece of consumer electronics suddenly become completely unaffordable? Well, it's actually because a massive artificial intelligence model doing a training run halfway across the country just ate up the entire global supply of computer memory.
It is wild how that happens.
It really is. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way.
Right.
We are taking a massive stack of source material today, specifically a comprehensive daily briefing dated Sunday, April 19th, 2026.
And it is a dense briefing.
Yeah, it's huge. Our mission today is to basically extract the actual signal from all the noise. We want to show you how these massive geopolitical events, rapid AI advancements, and the cybersecurity threats hitting your local community are all fundamentally intertwined.
Right, because it's a phenomenal briefing to unpack. It covers literally everything from international conflicts to AI benchmarks.
Yeah.
And we're going to synthesize these diverse items by looking at the mechanisms behind them, the what and the why.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we connect the dots here, a hidden narrative really emerges. It's about resource scarcity, information control, and these systemic vulnerabilities that are, frankly, quietly impacting your daily life, your wallet, and your neighborhood.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand those invisible digital threads, we actually have to start with physical geography.
Yeah, the real world matters here.
Exactly. So I am looking at the geopolitical updates in the briefing, and the Strait of Hormuz has been closed by Iran.
Which is a massive development.
Huge. Now, looking at the sequence of events over the past week, this closure is a direct response to a U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports that started back on April 13th.
Right.
And to be clear, even though a truce was recently brokered in Lebanon, President Trump has explicitly clarified that the U.S. blockade is going to remain in place.
So the tension isn't going anywhere.
Not at all. The physical reality in the Gulf is intensely volatile right now. We already have reports of 2 Indian-flagged ships taking gunfire from Iranian gunboats.
Wow.
Yeah, and an Oman container ship just sustained rocket damage, too.
What's fascinating here is how quickly a maritime standoff translates into a severe technology crisis for you and me.
Wait, how so? Does our digital hardware actually physically move through that specific waterway?
Immense quantities of it do. I mean, when we hear about the Strait of Hormuz, the mind immediately goes to energy, right?
Sure, gas prices.
Exactly. 20 million barrels of oil pass through there daily. That's a fifth of all seaborne oil trade. But beyond the gas pump, this specific corridor is a vital, irreplaceable choke point for the global tech supply chain.
Okay, so what exactly is on those ships?
We are talking about raw materials, like rare earth elements and processed lithium, alongside finished semiconductors that originate in East Asia.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, ships carrying these critical components increasingly route through the Gulf. And when rocket attacks occur, maritime shipping insurers either dramatically spike their premiums or they force commercial fleets to reroute entirely around the Horn of Africa.
Which takes forever.
Right. That instantly injects weeks of delay into the global system. So for you listening, this isn't just some abstract foreign policy issue.
No, not at all.
This means the server upgrade for your local hospital gets delayed, or that electric vehicle you pre-ordered is just sitting half-finished in a factory because the navigation chip is stuck on a rerouted cargo ship.
Man. That physical fragility exposing our digital reliance is just a terrifying concept.
It really is.
And we are seeing that exact same realization happen at the street level in places we previously thought were secured.
Right. The Ukraine situation.
Yeah. The briefing covers a deeply tragic event over the weekend. There was a mass shooting in a supermarket in wartime Kyiv. It's just devastating. A 58-year-old attacker who was reportedly born in Russia opened fire with an automatic weapon. 6 people were killed and at least 14 wounded.
Such a senseless tragedy.
It is. He set an apartment on fire, fired shots outside a shopping center, and then barricaded herself with hostages before police ultimately killed him.
And it stands out so sharply because of the context there. I mean, Kyiv has spent years adapting its infrastructure to the realities of a drone and missile war.
Right, they're looking up.
Exactly. Public safety there is oriented toward the sky. They have these sophisticated air raid apps and civilian drone spotting networks. But unpredictable street-level gun violence of this nature, that is a completely different vector of threat.
It's like we're building digital roofs to protect from falling debris, but ignoring the front door.
That is a great way to put it.
Like we spend billions securing the airspace, but the ground level remains highly vulnerable. Does a tragedy like this force city planners to just turn urban spaces into smart fortresses?
That is the exact conversation dominating public safety forums right now. This ground-level tragedy acts as an immediate catalyst for hardening the physical public square.
So what does it actually look like?
Well, we are going to see a rapid acceleration in the deployment of AI-assisted surveillance.
Hmm.
But it isn't just about putting up more cameras. Yeah.
Right, smarter than that.
Exactly. It is about deploying cameras with real-time analytics that can literally spot a weapon before a shot is even fired.
Wow.
Yeah, and integrating acoustic gunshot detection sensors on street lamps and linking all of that to highly localized emergency alert networks. It is a physical manifestation of technology being deployed as a reactionary shield.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because all of this physical hardware we're talking about, from AI cameras blanketing city streets in Kyiv to the delayed servers and lithium shipments trapped in the Gulf, it all requires massive computing power.
Unbelievable amounts of it.
And the cost of that computing power is suddenly bleeding directly into consumer electronics. Like we mentioned at the start, I am looking at the consumer tech section of the briefing, and virtual reality prices are spiking today.
Yeah, the Meta pricing announcements are incredibly telling.
Right.
Meta is officially raising the price of the Quest 3 by $100, bringing it to $599.99.
That's a huge jump.
It is. And the entry-level Quest 3S is jumping by $50 to $349.99. And the stated reason for this is an AI-driven global RAM shortage.
Which completely blew my mind when I read it.
I know, it sounds disconnected.
It really does.
Oh.
Why does an AI company doing research cause a kid's gaming headset to jump $50?
So to understand the mechanism here, we have to look at the 2026 Stanford AI Index. It was just published right alongside these price hikes. It shows that top-tier artificial intelligence models, specifically Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.6 and Google's Gemini 3.1 Pro, are now crossing the 50% success barrier on the absolute hardest, most complex reasoning benchmark suites available.
Which is a huge milestone.
Massive. But achieving that level of compounding intelligence requires an insatiable appetite for infrastructure. These models don't just run on magic.
Right.
They require vast inference clusters and mountains of random access memory, or RAM, to process all that information.
Wait, so AI is like a new roommate who eats all the groceries?
Well, kind of.
Because of these massive AI training runs, a kid's gaming headset or a school's VR lab is suddenly unaffordable. It's less like a bad roommate and more like a massive corporation wrenching out every single moving truck in the country at once.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it.
Like if a local school district needs to rent a truck to move some desks, there's simply none left. So the price of the few remaining trucks just skyrockets?
Exactly. The supply of memory chips globally is finite. The foundries can only produce so much silicon at a time.
Right.
Because the AI giants are essentially buying up the global supply to train and run their models, they drive the baseline price of RAM up for every other device manufacturer on Earth.
Which is wild.
Yeah. A school district trying to buy VR headsets for a special education program is literally being priced out of the market simply because an AI model needs to get a few percentage points smarter.
That feels incredibly unequal, though. Like, who is actually benefiting from all this intelligence if the hardware is getting too expensive for normal people?
That's the million-dollar question. A new April 2026 study from PwC on AI performance answers that directly, and the data is pretty stark.
What does it say?
Currently, just 20% of companies are capturing 75% of the economic value generated by AI.
Wait, 20% taking 3/4 of the pie?
Yeah.
That is a massive consolidation of wealth. Why is the gap so wide?
Because the AI leaders are utilizing this technology for exponential growth and pricing power, not just, incremental productivity.
Oh, I see.
For a massive enterprise, integrating an advanced AI model allows them to redesign their entire supply chain or their whole customer service architecture. It wipes out massive overhead costs and allows them to dominate new markets.
But for a small business.
Right. For a smaller business or a local school district, simply buying a few AI subscriptions doesn't magically create that value. You have to fundamentally redesign your organizational processes to see those gains.
And the giants have the capital to do that redesign.
Exactly. The rest are just paying higher subscription fees.
Wow. And those giants are apparently not satisfied with just hoarding all the RAM and capturing the economic value. They are now buying the very megaphones used to talk about them.
Yes, the media acquisition.
Yeah, I see in the briefing that OpenAI just made its first major media acquisition, buying TBPN, the Technology Business Programming Network.
Which is a huge shift.
Totally unprecedented. TBPN is a really popular daily live tech talk show hosted by Jordy Hayes and John Coogan. The deal is reported to be in the low hundreds of millions of dollars.
A massive payout.
For sure. But the kicker is where this network lives now. It is being placed inside OpenAI's strategy organization, meaning it reports directly to their chief political officer, Chris Lethane.
Now, OpenAI has stated publicly that they are pledging complete editorial independence for the hosts.
I mean, I have to push back on that premise entirely.
You for it.
They can pledge editorial independence all day long, but come on. When the world's most valuable AI company outright owns the journalists whose entire job is covering the AI industry, isn't this just corporate PR operating with a multi-million-dollar budget?
It's hard to see it any other way.
Like, how can a show objectively critique a massive breakthrough by a competitor like Anthropic or Google when their paychecks are literally signed by OpenAI's chief political officer?
This raises an important question about the evolution of unchecked tech monopolies. Historically, tech platforms were content to just license media or host third-party content.
Like Facebook or Google News.
Right. What we are witnessing now is the vertical integration of information. AI companies are directly absorbing media, talent, and the distribution channels used to shape public perception.
That's a little scary.
It is.
I did.
And it's this exact consolidation of power that is triggering anxiety at the highest levels of international government.
Which leads directly to what the United Nations is doing this week.
Exactly. The UN has officially launched the Global AI Impact Panel. Think of it as the equivalent of the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, but entirely focused on artificial intelligence.
Okay, so what's their goal?
They are organizing a massive, ongoing global study to track exactly how AI is impacting labor markets, wealth inequality, global health, and education systems.
Does the UN panel actually have any teeth, though? Like, can they force an AI company in Silicon Valley to change its behavior?
Legally, no. For the U.S. and the European Union, the UN's findings will not be binding law,
Okay.
but they will carry immense geopolitical weight. Look, when the companies building the world's artificial intelligence also control the physical hardware supply chain and own the media narrative discussing their products, the UN is stepping in to provide a necessary independent baseline of objective reality.
So it's about transparency.
Right. It is a signal that the global community will not simply trust the tech giants to police themselves.
Man, we desperately need that oversight at the top because while we debate AI monopolies, the foundational software at the very bottom, the stuff running our daily lives, is silently crumbling.
The cybersecurity landscape right now is grim.
It really is. I'm looking at the cybersecurity section, and we are dealing with some deeply alarming vulnerabilities.
Yeah, we are seeing a shift from theoretical cyber risks to highly aggressive active exploitation in the wild.
The briefing details two massive zero-day flaws. Now, for anyone listening who is unfamiliar, a zero-day is a vulnerability in a software system that the software creators didn't know about, meaning hackers have a head start to exploit it before a fix can be created.
Right, it's a race against the clock.
Exactly. Currently, Microsoft is dealing with a critical SharePoint zero-day. It's CVE 2026-32201. The federal government has actually stepped in and set a strict April 28 deadline for all civilian agencies to patch their systems.
Which is a very tight turnaround.
Very tight. And on top of that, there is an Apache ActiveMQ zero-day carrying an 8.8 out of 10 severity score.
And while IT departments scramble to apply those patches, ransomware syndicates are capitalizing on the chaos.
Oh, absolutely.
The landscape of cybercrime is consolidating in the exact same way the AI industry is.
Yeah, Checkpoint researchers report that in March alone, out of nearly 700 tracked attacks, a single group known as Quilin accounted for 20% of them.
20% is massive for one group.
It's crazy. They are being trailed by groups like Akira at 12% and Dragon Force at 8%. But Quailin is specifically terrifying because they are heavily targeting healthcare facilities and education systems using these fast, noisy, double extortion campaigns.
And a double extortion campaign is particularly malicious.
Explain how that works for people who don't know.
Well, in the past, ransomware just locked a school's computers. And the hackers demanded money for the digital key to unlock them.
Right, a simple hostage situation.
Exactly. But now, groups like Quillen break in, steal gigabytes of highly sensitive data first, and then lock the computers.
Ugh, that's so much worse.
It is. If the school refuses to pay the ransom or tries to restore from their own backups, the hackers threaten to leak the stolen data onto the open internet.
Like what kind of data?
Things like student psychiatric evaluations or teachers' financial records.
That is awful. And we are seeing the fallout of this brutal tactic in our own backyards.
We really are.
Spring Lake Park schools in Minnesota just managed to reopen this week, after a full ransomware shutdown forced them to take their entire technology system offline and close classrooms.
And the long-term damage from these attacks is staggering.
Totally. Look at the massive PowerSchool breach from 2024. The 20-year-old hacker responsible, Matthew Lane, was just sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. He was ordered to pay $14.1 million in restitution for exposing the personal data of 60 million students and 10 million teachers.
A staggering amount of people.
And yet, here in 2026, Ramona Unified in California is still actively dealing with the fallout and confirming new impacts from that exact same breach.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the situation in our schools presents a tragic irony.
How so?
Well, on one hand, you have the highest levels of government pushing for technological acceleration. The U.S. Department of Education is finalizing priorities to distribute federal grants specifically for AI integration in classrooms.
Okay, push the new tech.
Right. Google is aggressively marketing its Gemini and Notebook LM systems to schools, while Anthropic just rebuilt its Claude Code desktop app specifically for education users.
It's like school districts are leaving the bank vault door wide open because they spent their entire security budget on new smart whiteboards.
That is the reality on the ground. The very school districts being pressured to adopt cutting-edge, resource-heavy AI tools are paralyzed by foundational infrastructure decay.
Because they're running outdated stuff.
Exactly. They are running outdated on-premise servers. A flaw in Microsoft SharePoint isn't just a technical glitch for an IT guy to fix. For a public school, that server holds student individualized education programs, highly sensitive HR documents, and private medical data.
Which is exactly what the hackers want.
Precisely. Schools are prime targets for groups like Quillen, because society is demanding they leap into the AI future, while their basic IT security is actively crumbling under their feet.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a landscape today that feels incredibly heavy.
It's a lot to process.
It is. Between naval blockades threatening our hardware, AI monopolies buying up the press, and ransomware syndicates locking down elementary schools, it is easy to feel a bit, well, dystopian.
Understandably so.
But true to form, the source material actually provides a deeply human counterweight to all this technological anxiety.
Amid massive systemic shifts, it is always crucial to observe what human beings instinctively choose to value and pay attention to.
Exactly. Let's look at the trending topics for a second. Pop culture is still an incredible anchor.
Always.
Marvel dropped the Avengers, Doomsday trailer at CinemaCon, and the internet is completely captivated. Robert Downey Jr. returning as Dr. Doom, starring alongside Chris Evans, Pedro Pascal, Ian McKellen, and Tom Hiddleston ahead of the December 18th release.
People love a good shared cultural moment.
You really do. And sports fans have the Washington Commanders trending heavily ahead of the NFL draft, largely debating their controversial new alternate helmets featuring a spear through the W logo.
Oh, I've seen those debates.
Yeah. And in the world of comfort food, Buc-ee's gas stations are going viral simply for announcing regional expansions. Like, people are genuinely excited about brisket sandwiches and massive clean restrooms.
We laugh at it, but those are highly tangible physical experiences.
Yes.
Whether it is gathering in a movie theater, debating a physical sports uniform, or stopping at a roadside attraction, humans crave shared physical scaling to balance out digital isolation.
Speaking of finding a balance, there is a massive political debate trending online right now regarding the reauthorization of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA.
Right, the Section 702 debate.
Yes, the core of the argument centers on Section 702, specifically whether warrant requirements should apply to U.S. persons who get swept up incidentally in foreign surveillance.
It's a very thorny issue.
It is. You have civil liberties groups arguing fiercely on one side for strict privacy boundaries, and national security voices pushing back on the other, emphasizing the need for rapid intelligence gathering. Now, we obviously take absolutely no political side on this whatsoever, but it is fascinating to watch the public wrestle with these concepts in real time.
It is a direct reflection of that same tension we discussed regarding the smart fortresses in Kyiv.
How so?
Well, the public is constantly trying to negotiate the boundaries between physical security and digital privacy in a world that is becoming increasingly monitored.
That makes total sense. Now, amidst all of those complex debates, there are two final stories in the briefing that I think bring this entire deep dive into profound focus.
What's the first one?
Over the weekend, a cork life jacket worn by a passenger on the RMS Titanic in 1912 sold at auction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it sold for £670,000, which is roughly $900,000. It is one of the very few that survived in wearable condition.
It is a breathtaking juxtaposition.
Ah.
We have spent this entire deep dive analyzing AI models crossing 50% performance benchmarks and global tech supply chains choking in the Persian Gulf. Yet global public attention is utterly captivated by a 114-year-old piece of cork and canvas.
It's amazing.
Auction houses might attribute the high price to renewed interest from deep-sea expeditions, but fundamentally it proves our enduring, unbreakable connection to physical history. A single, tangible object anchors our humanity in a way that compounding lines of code simply cannot.
That physical human connection leads perfectly into the final piece of news today.
The philanthropy story.
Yeah. Billionaire philanthropist Mackenzie Scott just made a quiet, unrestricted donation of $70 million to Meals on Wheels America. It is the single largest gift the organization has ever received in its history.
What stands out to me is the unrestricted nature of the gift.
Meaning they can spend it however they need.
Exactly. That capital flows directly to local programs without bureaucratic red tape. In an era completely obsessed with using artificial intelligence to scale productivity and redesign corporate structures, Scott's donation proves a vital point.
Which is?
The most impactful technology in a vulnerable person's life is often just a human being showing up at a homebound senior's door with a hot meal. For many of those seniors, that volunteer might be the only human interaction they have all week.
Man, it really grounds you. Generosity scales too.
It really does.
And it doesn't require a massive server farm or a rerouted lithium shipment or an expensive VR headset to work. It just takes someone showing up.
It is a powerful reminder that while we absolutely must navigate the complexities of zero-day vulnerabilities and global tech choke points, our shared humanity remains our most resilient foundational infrastructure.
We've seen today how AI is rapidly consuming the world's physical resources, driving up the cost of everyday hardware, while simultaneously attempting to buy up the very media that reports on its progress.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It is. So, as these models get smarter and the monopolies get wealthier, ask yourself this. When AI eventually generates the majority of our media narratives and entirely runs the infrastructure of our local cities, who will be left to report on the blind spots? Will the human in the loop become a rare luxury item, just like a $900,000 cork life jacket? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, stay informed, and we will see you next time.